Welcome to Hey Chaplain. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm a chaplain with the police department. My goal with this podcast is to give police officers more encouragement than what they usually get. So on this podcast, you'll hear from cops and, in today's episode, a firefighter, who have wisdom to share, experiences and lessons that they've learned that can make a difference in your life. From the LAPD to Scotland Yard, the guests on Hey Chaplain are going to help you confidently navigate through all of the ups and downs that come with a first responder career. If you are listening today on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other platform where you can leave some kind of feedback, would you please pause for just a moment and leave a 5-star rating and a positive review so that when other cops are searching for these kinds of resources, they'll see your endorsement, and that recommendation from you will make all of the difference. On today's episode, we're talking to Gregg Lanzen. He's a police and fire chaplain from Indiana who was a firefighter, a medic, a church pastor, and a counselor with a doctorate in psychology. Gregg has all kinds of good things to tell you about building resiliency and some great tips for first responder families. Here's Gregg Lanzen. Hello, Gregg. How are you today?
I'm fine. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you in from Indiana. I've actually got you sitting across the desk from me. And
yes.
I'm glad you can come join me in the studio. So tell me a little bit about how you got started as a first responder. You were actually in ministry.
Yes, right. I was a youth minister in Illinois and in a smaller town, smaller community that had a volunteer fire department. And our church that I ministered in as a youth pastor was just 4 blocks away from the fire station, and ad appeared in the paper they needed volunteers. So I volunteered to become a firefighter. And part of being on that department meant they wanted you to go to medic school. So I got my EMT, my medic licensing while I was there. And then one day, my lead pastor at my church brought me into his office and kind of told me that he wanted to replace me.
Decided it was time for you to try something new.
Yeah, he was he was a new pastor to the church, and so it happens in our denomination. It's just the way it goes. And so I knew that at that next Sunday I was going to have to read my resignation.
Wow.
So
did you have like, what am I going to do next? Did you have a job lined up?
Yeah, no, I didn't have a job lined up, but I really wasn't worried about it. I figured God's going to take care of me.
Oh, God bless you.
You know, so
I'd be a nervous wreck.
Well, I might have been a few days later, but I don't know. The way things worked out, it just, so I was going to read the resignation on Sunday morning, and I read the resignation Sunday morning. Just so happened that Sunday night, I ended up on an ambulance call. I was the medic on the call. And the engineer, the driver of the ambulance, was the fire chief.
Oh, wow.
And on the way back to the station after the call, he just said, hey, our medical side of the fire department has been, so busy. And I've worked out some things with the local funeral home. I should mention this. The funeral home actually provided the ambulances, but it was firefighters that worked the ambulances. Yeah. So
there's a historic connection there.
Oh, yeah.
Homes,
so
ambulances.
The ambulances were parked at the fire station, but they actually had a funeral home name on them. Okay?
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did. It was a weird setup. But anyway, fire chief says, we're looking to hire somebody full-time, and I've worked it out with the funeral director who owns the ambulances. Would you be interested in becoming our chief, although we weren't going to call it a chief, our lead medic, and kind of go to work full time doing the medical side? And so Sunday morning, I resigned from the church. Sunday night, I had a new job. Now, when I resigned from the church owed me 2 weeks of vacation time. So I said to the chief, I won't be able to do anything for a couple of weeks because I'm going to go on vacation. And he said, oh, well, that works out good because we need 2 weeks to get all the necessary paperwork and stuff done before you can actually start. Yeah. So it worked out really well. So,
oh my goodness, it couldn't work out more perfectly.
Right. Yeah. And so I ended up doing that for a number of years, just in a suburb of Chicago. Yeah. And kept me really busy for a good number of years. Then,
but you ended up in Indiana,
Goshen, Indiana. Yes.
And in Goshen, you had a lengthy tenure as a church pastor.
Yes.
And then continued your involvement with fire. You were in a volunteer fire department.
Yes.
And rose up through the ranks there.
Yes.
And then you also diversified in a couple ways through chaplaincy and through your education. So let's talk about your education first. Okay. So you went to a Bible college.
Yes. I got my bachelor's degree back in 74. I'm an old guy. And I got my bachelor's degree at Faith Baptist Bible College in Ankeny, Iowa.
But then decades later, you're like, I'm going to have to do some more education.
Yes. I came to the point where I realized that when it comes to doing chaplain work and helping people in critical incident situations, crisis situations, I really felt inadequately prepared for a lot of that. And so I decided to do research and see what I could get as far as education to help me do a better job of counseling. I'd already gone through some counseling training, but I felt like I needed more on the critical incident side. Yeah. So I found a school that would allow me to do distance learning and just submit my assignments and all that kind of thing. And so got my master's degree in crisis counseling in 2010. Then in 2012, got my psychology degree, my doctorate in psychology from the same organization. Again, focused on crisis management, critical incident stress management, that kind of thing.
So let's back up to becoming a chaplain. You were telling me a story. You were on a structure fire.
Yeah, it was Labor Day. I remember it. I mean, it's one of those things, you have those certain moments in your life where you can remember it today just like it happened yesterday, or at least close to that. And that's what happened to me. We got dispatched out on a working house fire on Labor Day. And about 7 o'clock in the morning, got on scene. Because I was the first officer on scene, I became incident command. So I'm focusing on fighting the fire, doing exposure control, all of those things. We determined on our size up on our 360 that there was nobody home. And so we got focused on fighting the fire.
Just containing it.
Yeah, containing it mostly. It was, the house was
I don't know all the fire jargon.
It was fully involved when we got there. We weren't going to
save the structure.
No, they were going to plow it all in at the end of the day and build a new house. So we focused on exposure control. We did put some water on the fire, of course, but primarily exposure control. Well, I'm in command, and you get focused on commanding. Okay. Yeah. And probably an hour into the incident, the chief walks up to me and says, "I'm going to relieve you of your command. I got another job for you." And I said, "Sure, what do you want me to do?" And he says, "Look over there." And I look over to my right, and here's a man, a woman, young man, young woman, husband and wife, and a daughter that's probably about 12, and a son that's maybe 9 or 10 sitting on this big log right alongside their driveway. And the chief says, "That's the family." He said, they've been away camping, and they just came home to this. Now, this was pre-cell phones and that kind of thing. Yeah. So they didn't know anything about the fire till they came around the corner and saw their house
ashes.
Yes, basically. And they were just in shock, absolute shock. So he says, "You're a minister. Go take care of them." Okay.
You'll know what to do.
Yeah. In all my years as a minister and a firefighter, when I'd get on fire scenes or medic situations, I was focused on helping people, but from a more physical aspect. Yeah. Put the fire out, do the extrication, start the IV.
Yeah. Stabilize the patient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is the first time. These people are probably 60 yards from where I'm standing, and I'm walking over towards them, and I'm thinking, I don't have the foggiest idea what to do to help these people. So I believe God put it in my head. I knew a county sheriff's department chaplain. I called him real quick and said, "Can you come and help me?" And he showed up a few minutes later, and I stuck myself in his back pocket and watched him work. And he was amazing. And the whole time, this little voice spoke inside my head, and I think it was God saying, you need to do this. You need to do this.
Yeah.
And so that's my introduction to chaplaincy. I went back to my office later and as a minister, and I started doing research, got online, found out there's training out there, started taking trainings. And 2004 became the department chaplain for the fire department.
Yeah.
And then did that till 2012. And in 2012, the police department in Goshen contacted me, the police chief, and asked if I would add the police department to my
That's a big ask.
Yeah, it was. So I ended up forming a team of chaplains, which there was two of us for a few years, and then we decided it was even bigger than two of us could handle because Goshen is a city of about 36,000 people, and you've got 75 sworn police officers, probably the same number of firefighters, career firefighters, and families. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've expanded, started our own organization, our own nonprofit called First In Crisis or Chaplain Crisis Response Team, First In Chaplain Crisis Response Team. And we did that so that we could earn funds to help us do more. People would not donate much to us because we couldn't get them a tax credit, quite frankly.
Right.
And so once we became a 501c3 nonprofit, with the IRS, we can now get donations, and people have been very generous since. And the city of Goshen helps us some as well.
So over 4 decades of church ministry, doctorate in psychology, years of chaplaincy, both police and fire.
Yeah, 20-some now.
Yeah. So you've got some expertise, and I've actually taken classes from you before and talked about especially topics like resilience and the dynamic of an officer or a firefighter, going into a hypervigilant state and then back down to what should be normal, and the failure to do that.
Yes.
You've got some really good classes, but is there maybe an aspect of that, of becoming a more resilient person and how to cope with trauma and stress that, is there an aspect or a couple aspects that are particularly meaningful or important to you?
Yeah, I'm an alliterator. Okay. I have a simple mind. I like to keep things as simple as I can so I remember them. And there's any amount, all kinds of information out there about resilience. Mm-hmm. You can get books, blogs, websites. It's out there. Podcasts. There you go. And they're all good. Don't get me wrong. And they all have their own formulas. That's the word I use. Sure. The ABCD, the 1, 2, 3, do this and this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's all good. Don't get me wrong. And it's all helpful. I have preferred to take all that stuff and just kind of condense it down as simple as I possibly can. I basically have 4, but if you want a top 2,
okay, the
top 2 would be faith and family. Number 1's faith. A lot of resilience training talks about faith that's out there.
Yeah.
But I don't personally believe they put it high enough on the priority list. So I put it at number 1.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a worldview. Okay. Yes. Everybody has a philosophy of life.
Yeah.
Everybody has something that they put their faith in. Now, for those of the Judeo-Christian ethic, it's either going to be Christianity or it's going to be Judaism. But that's where they found their life view. That's where the foundation is for their life. And that's important. If we're going to build resilience in a life, I believe that faith level has to be a big part of that foundation.
Okay. The faith is just a scary religious buzzword. And the person listening to this is like, well, I'm not particularly religious, so I probably don't have faith. Let's elaborate on that a little bit more. What is faith for a non-religious person?
Very good.
Is it their expectation?
No, it's what they believe in. It's what faith, very simply, is what I believe to be true about life.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and yes, you're right. Not everybody is of a Judeo-Christian or even a Buddhist or Hindu.
Right, some organized religion of some sort.
Exactly.
Right.
In fact, recent research that I quoted at a seminar yesterday that I taught tells us that only 20, I think it was Barna research, only 29% of Americans go to church with any regularity at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that means the vast majority of Americans aren't involved in a church, and it doesn't mean they don't believe in God. But there is a large number out there that don't really have a religious faith per se, but they still have faith.
Yeah.
They believe in something. Everybody believes in something. And it's important for a person, if they're going to build resilience, it's important for them to try and define that, what do I believe in? And then pursue that with their life in different ways, or whatever way fits for them.
So they need, say if I'm capturing this from you, a person, regardless of whether or not they practice religion, they need to identify what they trust is true about the world.
Yes.
So that they have some kind of anchor, some sort of foundation to stand on when it doesn't work out that way.
That's right. Exactly.
Because life's going to throw you curveballs.
That's right.
There's going to be tragedies and disappointments. But what you believe is true about the world is going to help you with resiliency.
Exactly. Even if that faith is in yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I realize that gets shaken at times.
Yeah.
But if we, in advance, before those traumas hit, if we will focus on trying to build that foundation in our lives. So if I believe just simply in doing good, let's just keep it really simple. I believe in doing good. Not necessarily based on God or anything like that.
Not tied to a church necessarily.
No, I just believe in doing good. Then that individual needs to pursue that. How do I pursue being good? By getting involved in things that allow you to be and do good. So it might be a service club. It might be, like 4-H even, or the
go help at the animal shelter.
Yeah, something like that.
Right.
And I realize that's not quite the same as a religious faith, but for a person that isn't religious, that can be a solid foundation for them.
Yeah.
And what happens is if you build that faith foundation, when those traumatic times hit, those crises hit, it's amazing how that foundation will help us to bounce back a little quicker. Whenever we get a traumatic situation, it dings all of us a little bit. Even the strongest firefighter, police officer, any kind of critical incident dings us a little bit. And we drop down a little bit on that emotional and psychological strength level. And having that ability to focus on the good that we're using for our illustration here can help me to bounce back quicker.
And when you fail to do that, because I talk to a lot of cops, and I feel like I've got some young people who they have that foundation. It's maybe not the foundation I would have. It's not the foundation that you'd find in an organized religion, but they have a foundation that they're not participating in.
Right.
And they're not doing anything to exercise that.
Right.
And I feel like in that moment of crisis, I start to see that emerge, that they have kind of abandoned the things they think are meaningful.
Yes.
And that's making it worse.
Yes, it just does.
I have a lot of police officers who did grow up in church, but as young adults, they're working shift work. They've not been super involved in church and that kind of thing. They're not opposed to church in theory. They've just been removed for a long time. Is there a benefit to just going back to church exactly? Or is there any evidence behind that? What have you found?
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about faith. And so the best way to live out our faith is in a faith fellowship, whether it be a church or a group of some sort. Or
some kind of community.
Exactly. Community. That's a great word, in community. And you're right. With shift work, it's often difficult for a police officer or a firefighter to make it to church because church is on Sunday morning at whatever time, and that's when I work. There's nothing wrong with that unless that then first responder, firefighter, police officer gets into the habit of not being involved in their faith community. Yeah. And then when those opportunities come up where they could be involved, they don't.
Yeah.
And so there has to be this mindset developed that I will be in my faith community when I can be, whether that's a Sunday morning, or if it's during the week, maybe there's some kind of a small group that meets or something. We'll get into that small group
or whatever.
Exactly, right. A service project. I will be there for that because that helps then build that faith foundation that we've been talking about.
So it probably doesn't hurt your resiliency to skip church for a year because you're on a particular shift and you can't go.
Right.
But if that year leads to a 20-year period of not going, that probably will hurt your resiliency.
Yes. I would hesitate to even say a year. Most believers, most people that are involved in a church can make it to church at least once or twice a month.
Yeah.
And now, not necessarily Sunday morning because the shift won't allow that.
may not allow the Sunday morning.
Exactly. But there are other times, and there needs to be a concentrated effort. Yes.
Yeah.
A concentrated effort to find a way to get involved, like I said, in a small group or something like that.
Yeah. I was trying to be generous because, I think if you skip for a year, that's more than enough time to just get out of the habit.
Very easily.
So then there's always something else, and you'll just start plugging in a million other things.
Exactly.
And then you're not reinforcing that belief foundation that you have. You're actually undermining it.
Exactly. And again, it's not the important thing isn't the attendance. The important thing is the foundation of faith that you're trying to build upon to give you the resilience to deal with the stuff you deal with when you're on shift. So just walking in the door of a church isn't going to make you more resilient. When you get involved in your faith, that thing you believe in, that church, that synagogue, whatever it might be, when you get involved in that as much as you possibly can, it's going to help build that spiritual strength in your own life so that then affects your resilience when you get into traumatic situations. So it's important for faith, number one, okay? Get focused on faith, whatever that faith focus is, as a foundation. And then the second thing is family. And if we build a strong family, and that means doing things with and for our families to help balance work and family time. I mean, there are so many things that we could talk about today. But a couple that are just, I think, really important is, first of all, prioritizing family. When it comes to that cop or that firefighter, it's very easy to prioritize the career.
Yeah, the work. Yeah.
Over the family because of a number of things. And part of it is the chemicals that go to work in our brains and our bodies when we are on the job. And when we're on the job, I'm going to speak specifically of adrenaline here. That adrenaline is flowing constantly, whether you're actually on a call or if you're sitting in your squad doing paperwork or if you're in the station, that's still up. You're ready to respond just instantly. Well, that becomes addictive. Scientific evidence is out there is that adrenaline is addictive. Okay, well, when you go home, that adrenaline just drains off really fast.
Yeah.
And so what happens if you haven't built connections at home and strengthened the family relationship at home, going home can start to look like a really discouraging, a really depressing thing. That
you're addicted to the action.
Yeah.
And family pales in comparison.
Yeah. And so now all of a sudden we're tempted to take extra duty shifts. We're tempted to do trade days. We're tempted to work overtime because then I don't have to go home and feel all down. We call it the level of dispassion, and there's nothing wrong with that level of dispassion. But if the firefighter or police officer isn't ready for that, if the family isn't ready for that, and they haven't learned how to mitigate that dispassion, it can become a source of conflict and will become a source of conflict often in the relationships at home. So firefighters and police officers often try to avoid that.
Yeah.
Resilience teaches us how to mitigate it and not avoid it.
Yeah. Do you have a recommendation for how a first responder, they're coming off their shift, they're coming home? Do you have a recommendation for how to make that go better than it typically goes?
Yeah, there are a number of things that you can do. Two that I think are big. Number one, and again, this requires the spouses, whether it's a husband or wife, whoever's at home. They've got to work together on this. Okay. This is making that family a priority. Okay. What I believe is important to do is to allow that first responder a little time to decompress after the shift, whether it's an 8-hour shift, 12-hour shift, 24, 48-hour shift, depends on whatever it is.
Sure.
Give them some time to decompress. Now, there's evidence out there through some psychological organizations that it can take up to 48 hours for a person to totally recover from a critical incident-filled day.
And they almost never get that.
You don't get that. No. Yeah, almost. I don't know anybody that ever gets that.
No, I've got some young single guys.
I suppose.
That they go home. Their dog gives them 48 hours to recover.
All right. All right. I hadn't thought of that.
But yeah, if you've got a family,
you can't do that.
It's not going to happen.
And so what we recommend is you work together, you talk about this, and you schedule decompression time. And it's right after the shift. When that police officer or that firefighter walks in the door, they know they have X number of minutes. We usually recommend an hour. They have X number of minutes to do whatever they need to do to get back in the family game again. So if it's go run, if it's go work out at the gym, if it's go try to cram in 9 holes of golf, I don't know, go fish a little bit, take a nap. Maybe they just want to watch TV. But
they're allowed to have an hour of alone time?
Yes. We basically guard that. We're, let's say the first responder is a guy. So it's mom now is the one that we're coming home to, the wife. Mom tells the kids, okay, we're going to leave dad to himself for an hour. Yeah. We're giving dad, so you don't go in, you can say hi to him when he first gets home, but then just let him have his time. Yeah. Now, we also, though, emphasize with the first responder that once that hour is up, you get back in the family game.
Yeah. That's not your excuse to check out for the rest of the day.
No, you got to get back in the family game. And what's important, and this is the second thing I was going to come to. The second thing that's important, first of all, you've got to have that decompression time. Secondly, you've got to have communication.
Yeah.
That the family needs to communicate with each other. And we have to be careful. We know about secondary trauma, right?
Yes.
Whereas the police officer, the firefighter
comes home and tells all the gory details.
Too much detail. Yeah.
Too much.
The other side of that is where they come home and shut down and they don't say anything.
Yeah.
But something's not right. And the spouse, even the kids, will pick up on that. What's wrong with daddy? Yeah. Why isn't daddy acting like he normally does? Yeah. Why isn't mommy talking with us like she normally does? Yeah. So there's extremes to that. Too much information, not enough information. Communication is so important. And for different families, that's going to be different.
Yeah.
And so it's important that the family, the husband, the wife, and the kids, especially husband and wife to start with, and then the kids get involved in it as well, sit down and determine what kind of information do we want to share and when. Okay. And that helps.
Decompression time.
Yes.
And deliberate, purposeful communication.
Yes, very much so.
Let me throw a curveball. You may not have an answer to this. What if the time that you get home from your shift, the kids are in the middle of going to school or getting back from school, or it's not possible to take that first hour to yourself? What do you do then? Yeah.
I think what you do is, the first responder needs to understand this is part of what's happening today. There's always going to be exceptions to every rule.
Sure.
There's going to be those emergencies that come up, whatever. And so, they come home. The scenario you give is happening. There's a ball game. Our son's involved in a ball game. And it starts in 10 minutes.
Yes.
We got to go.
Yes.
The first responder says, I understand that. But we've communicated that once the game is over and everything has settled down, first responder is going to get their hour.
Yeah.
So it may not be immediately after work. And it may not always be an hour. It may just be have 15 minutes of time. Or it may just be bedtime and we're just going to bed. Those happen.
But it's a purposeful, I am going to decompress.
Yes.
because if I don't take this time, you're going to lose me on the back end.
Yes.
Because we will become estranged, or I will die young.
Yes.
or whatever,
yes.
or somewhere in between.
Yeah.
But it needs to happen.
There needs to be some time for the first responder to decompress. Okay. And again, there's going to be those days where you won't make it happen. Yeah. But make that the exception to the rule. Don't let it become the rule. The rule is we're going to try and give X amount of time every shift, at the end of every shift, for that first responder to decompress and get back into the family game.
And we're going to communicate about it.
We're going to talk about it. And if something big is coming up, let's say, the wife's at home, first responder's a guy. We're going to use that illustration. And little Johnny gets in a fight at school, gets in trouble at school. And so the school counselor calls mommy and says, come get your kid. They're being suspended for the rest of the day. Okay. If that tension is going on at home, when the first responder comes home, it's going to just be like a load that is waiting at the door for them to come in. They're going to know something's not right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we recommend is that the spouse in this situation, this scenario, the wife, sends what I call a warning shot to her first responder husband. And all that is a quick text that said, Johnny got into some trouble at school today, or Johnny had a problem at school today, and we're going to need to talk with him about it after you get home. And then first responder husband understands, okay, I get home, I got to decompress, but then I've got to deal with this issue. You see what I'm saying? And it can just help because he doesn't get blindsided with it when he comes through the door.
Right. We don't want him to get ambushed when he's leaving the space where he has all of this stress and potential trauma and hypervigilance, and coming home to the space where he's not supposed to be hypervigilant. Give him a warning.
Right, because that is...
So he can prepare.
You're right. Yeah. Otherwise, he's coming right back into a similar situation to what he's been involved in all day, except this time it's personal.
Yes.
And that can be more damaging to the relationship between husband and wife and parent and child. It can be.
Fantastic. That is really excellent advice. I love all of that. Thank you, Gregg, for coming in today.
Glad to do it. Thank you for inviting me. This is fun.
This was good.
I've never done this before.
Thank you so much. I want to thank Gregg for coming in and making Kansas City one of his stops during his travels, and especially for sharing a few highlights of some of his teaching with us. And I hope that those are things that you can take and implement into your own life, whether it is that buffer time at the end of a shift, going back to church and really getting involved in your faith, or sending that warning text to your spouse to let them know they're about to walk into a stressful situation at home. These practices represent just the tip of the iceberg to what could be healthier practices for you and for your family to build resilience and to be healthier as a first responder. There are so many great options and so much great advice. I hope that you avail yourself to people like Dr. Lanzen. Whatever is ailing you, I'm convinced that there are solutions. On the next episode of Hey, Chaplain.
There are benefits, and I believe that as AI continues to grow, as law enforcement, other first responders begin to adapt it more into the day-to-day routine of being on duty, those good things are going to be great tools.
Sure.
But I think there are there's a lot of downside to this as well that we need to, I think, at least discuss, because we can build up and we can build up, and this stuff's great, but there are downfalls to this too. And the biggest one I see is there's privacy concerns.
The views expressed here are the personal views of the host and our guests and do not necessarily represent the views of any law enforcement agency or its components. Our aim is to continue to provide this show as a free resource to everyone, and that's only possible because of the supporters who help quietly behind the scenes. If you want to help this show reach more cops, chaplains, and other first responders around the world, please follow the link in the episode description to support the show. If you like this episode, please share it with a cop or someone who loves a cop. Thank you for listening to Hey Chaplain. And as always, let's pray for peace in our city.